is that each gang is taking the dance floor away from the other. And the way it has been cut now, this story point is not made at all. I do not care about the choreography as long as the story is clearly told.
I think it's the one number that failed, and I think it needed Jerry there.
Although Robbins did not get to complete the film, West Side Story won 10 Academy Awards, including one for Robbins as co-director, plus another special Oscar for choreography.
Jerome Robbins has always been on the move, at home and abroad, dancing the works of others, creating new ballets of his own, choreographing and directing musical plays. In everything he does, expressing the vigor and the freedom of modern ballet in America.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
In 1958, Robbins formed Ballets USA, a company of dancers to appear first at the Festival of Two Worlds in Spoleto, Italy, then throughout Europe.
As a result of agreements signed between the Soviet Union and the United States, the Cold War is going to take on a cultural dimension.
Tell us a little more about this tour you're going to take in Europe.
Well, the government is sending us on a 4-month tour, about 15 countries.
I'm sure it didn't escape Jerry that the same government who had called him up before the House Un-American Activities Committee for his brief stint in the Communist Party would now be sending him to represent America abroad.
Here is the Jerome Robbins Ballet that conquered the world and did so much good for America. Let's bring these youngsters on with a fine hand, would you?
From the press reports I've seen, I gather that the reception given your ballets abroad is as great or greater than that given the Bolshoi Ballet here in New York. Is that right?
Well, we had a wonderful success last year, Ed.
Jerry had a very good instinct for the audience, and the high art part of him was always in gait with the part that said, that's too slow, they're not getting that, we need a laugh there. He knew that musical theater is popular art.
Gypsy is one of the great American works of art, period.
Wherever we go,
With Gypsy, Robbins' collaborators were at the top of their game,
we're gonna go through it together.
and he staged their work with cinematic fluidity. The show starred the formidable Ethel Merman as the domineering stage mother, Mama Rose, whose daughter Louise grows up to become the striptease artist Gypsy Rose Lee, after learning the ropes from a trio of burlesque performers.
But take it from me, to be a stripper, all you need to have is no talent.
You'll pardon me, but to have no talent is not enough. What you need to have is an idea.
Robbins auditioned real strippers for the show and got an unexpected bonus.
I was there the day that Faith Dane came in to audition and bent over and played taps.
And that was part of her act, and Jerry appropriated it.
To get paid, 'cause if you got a gimmick, gypsy girl, you've got it made.
Robbins pillaged his own background to differentiate the third stripper, a would-be ballerina who had seen better days.
If you wanna make it, twinkle while you shake it. If you wanna grind it, wait till you refine it. If you wanna bump it with the trumpet.
Robbins choreographed stage action to tell the story and had little patience for actors who forgot his directions, as the actress playing Gypsy's sister soon discovered.
Jerry Robbins was an icon. He's got this beautiful, warm smile that just opens you up. And then, honey, he sticks that knife in so hard and twists it.
The scene in the Chinese restaurant required her to be sitting at the table with Rose and to move a teapot.
Just get it out of the way so that she could sweep some silver into her bag, and it was a joke.
She forgot to do it, first preview. And Jerry was furious and bawled her out.
I can't remember all the times, but I forgot it again. And I go back to my dressing room, and he storms in, and he takes a red lipstick and wrote, "Remember to remove the F teapot." Okay. They said there will be a 4 o'clock teapot rehearsal for Lane Bradbury in the lobby. So for a half an hour, the stage manager would say the line, and I would move the teapot. And then he would put the teapot back, and he would say the line, and I would move the teapot. I think I remembered it until opening night in New York.
I was standing in the back, and Jerry, I could see him, just his entire body got tense, and he went backstage. I wondered what he was going to do. And the end of the cow number requires her to take 2 struts out of the back of the train and use them as batons.
And they were gone. They weren't there.
Jerry had gone backstage and told Ruth Mitchell, the stage manager, to take the struts out.
I went to him and I said, where were my batons?
And she was stuck in front of an audience of 1,200, 2,000 people with nothing to do for the finale.
I've heard from some former guests on this program, like Ethel Merman and Mary Martin, that as a director, you can be one of the toughest men they've ever met in the theater. True or false?
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
The climax of Merman's performance was a career-defining moment in which Rose confronts her hunger for recognition in a number Robbins and Sondheim concocted after rehearsal late one night.
Like Mickey and Judy, here you are in a darkened auditorium with just a work light on stage. And so we started ad-libbing. He said, give me some strip music. So I said, look, the whole idea, it seems to be the number, if you wanted to include all the people in Rose's life, why don't we include all the songs that she has had anything to do with in the show? And he started to walk like a stripper, back and forth across stage. We must have worked about 2 hours. And by the end of it, I had a whole sketch of the whole piece.
Here she is, boys! Here she is, world! Here's Rose!
Merman was belting it out, and she had tears streaming down her face. And I remember Jerry and I looked at each other because this was not a common occurrence, but it was big-time emotion going on that stage. The curtain came down, and she saw the 2 of us in the wings, and she immediately said, you see, I'm acting.
He was a wonderful director for Ethel. It was really 5, 6, 7, 8, do this. And she did it. He did it, she did it. And it worked. And she trusted him totally.
Everyone still talks about it as the King Lear for female performers.
Nobody could have gotten that performance out of Ethel but Jerry.
Extending his ambition to straight plays, Robbins took an offbeat comedy and turned it into an improbable success, while facing a different directorial challenge.
I stuttered, and so did the character. And it got worse and worse and worse. And I never knew what was going to happen on any given night. And I would spend all day in great anxiety. And I'd said, you know, I got to quit this thing. I just can't do it. So I get this call from Jerry saying, on your way to the theater tonight, would you stop at my place? So I did. He said, I hear you're thinking of quitting. I said, I got to, Jerry. I can't control it. And it's terrible for the show. And he said, if you quit this, first of all, you probably won't get hired in the industry again. But even if they do, you won't be able to go back on a stage. I said, well, I don't know what to do. He says, I don't either, but you're going to stay. I said, it says directed by Jerome Robbins. He says, I'll take that risk because I want you to have a career as an actor. So I stayed.
I'm the greatest star. I am by far, but no one knows it.
Although the public was unaware of it, Robbins' ability as a show doctor was legendary. He turned Funny Girl into a star-making vehicle for the young actress he'd chosen for the lead, Barbra Streisand.
A comedy tonight.
And made a hit out of a farce set in ancient Rome, featuring Jerome Robbins and Jack Guilford.
We were out of town, and he came in to help us because the show was floundering.
People in New Haven had been running in groups of 20 and 30 from the theater.
He said the trouble with the opening numbers, it doesn't prepare the audience for what the show's about. It doesn't say this is going to be low comedy, baggy pants comedy. He asked me to write that kind of number. He said, Steve, don't tell any jokes. Let me do the jokes.
He just developed these amazing sight gags from stuff that we had lying around. It was as if you had given Jerry a pocket handkerchief and said, now do 25 astonishing things with this. And he did.
He came up in a week with, one of the 2-3 best opening numbers in the history of the theater.
You want to do a musical about a bunch of old Jews in Russia who are going through a pogrom. I mean, what, are you out of your mind?
I heard the score of Fiddler, I think, up at Joe Stein's house in New Rochelle, I think it was. And I called Jerry and I said, there's a show. You've got to. This is, I think, right up your alley.
When Robbins was 6 years old, his mother took him to visit his father's family in their village in Poland.
I remember the journey was to go to see Grandpa, a figure with a long white beard who always sat me on his lap and who I loved a lot and who I knew loved me. And he sang many Jewish songs at night, and I sang with him. And there was comfort there. And it was my home. It was what I belonged to.
That was one of the reasons I wanted to do that show, because of that background that I have.
We'd never worked with a director who insisted on talking about the piece forever and ever. We had one meeting, 2 meetings a week. Eventually, the same question arose. What is the piece about?
He kept hammering away at it. And ordinarily, we would say, well, it's about this dairyman who has 5 daughters, and we would describe the plot. And he'd say, no, that's not what it's about.
Robbins had this idea of this bigger theme that would announce itself at the beginning of the show and would give it a greater emotional weight, historical weight, and I think a universality.
So it was months of these meetings. And now one of us said, you know, what this show may be about is the changing of a way of life.
Tradition! Tradition! Tradition!
Based on the work of the Yiddish writer Sholem Aleichem, Fiddler on the Roof told the story of Tevye, the dairyman, whose daughter's insistence on marrying for love threatens the traditions he cherishes.
Jerry worked differently from any director I've ever worked with. He would take a scene and say, I like the scene very much. Can you change it? So that I frequently would take a scene and write it from a different point of view. And he'd look and he says, this is really very good. I like the first one better. You worked much harder with Jerry as a director than you ordinarily did. And of course, it was worth it.
There's this little scene where the mom is telling all the daughters what to do to prepare for the Sabbath. He restaged that scene completely, and I'm not exaggerating, 25 times. People were going crazy. No, wait, do I put the fork on this or this? He was like a painter. Every time he staged it, I thought it was breathtaking. And he'd go, no, wait. And then he'd restage it.
To play the part of Tevye, Robbins wanted the larger-than-life Zero Mostel. But Mostel, who had worked with Robbins earlier, was reluctant to repeat the experience.
I won't use the word hate, but Zero did not like him for his revealing names to the House Un-American Activities Committee.
People were saying, you can't work with Zero. He is totally undisciplined. And Jerry would say, yeah, but I mean, he's a great artist. These directors today say, oh, I won't work with that person. They won't do exactly what I say. And here is Jerry, the control freak, supposedly, the choreographer. No, he wants that. He knows a great artist.
Mastel did not disappoint his director. He gave a performance for the ages, hailed by one critic as one of the most glowing creations in the history of the musical theater.
It was going to be one of the biggest hits ever. And yet, for the 3 weeks in Washington before they came to the Imperial Theater on Broadway to open it up, Robbins met with that cast every day to perfect it.
He described my performance to me in a way that was very humiliating. He said, the thought of that wonderful young woman being stuck with you as a husband was so revolting to me. I had to go out into the lobby. Now, he had a point, I regret to say. In fact, I even knew as he said it that he had a point. But boy, did that hurt. But I stopped being lazy. I stopped being sure of what I thought I was doing. He hated that. To prod someone from what they would do to what they could do. That's when it gets very painful and frightening and ugly sometimes. But he would do it.
Now, if he listened just to the audience and the reviews, he had to do nothing. He wouldn't take yes for an answer, but that's what great artists do. He tuned out the audience, tuned out the great reviews, and said, this may be great, but we can make it 20% better, and he did.
It was in Washington that Robbins added one of the show's most memorable scenes, though he'd laid the groundwork well before.
I would get a call from him saying, we're going to a Hasidic or Orthodox wedding over in Williamsburg.
He was very taken by the wildness of the dancing.
He said, to me, this is their communion with God, and they do it through movement.
The danger of it and risk of it was a tribute to the fact of the wedding itself, not just on the part of the bride and the groom, but of the father of the bride and her mother. The risk everyone was taking in having these two people become a couple was reflected in the People don't think like that anymore. Just think 2 or 3 steps further, and that's what you get to. That's what he did.
My dad's great pleasure was Fiddler on the Roof. I invited him to the opening, and he came to it, and he came through the stage door, and he saw me, and he just burst into tears. I was so touched by it.
After Fiddler, I said, what's next for you? He said, musicals are so painful for me. I know what the show should look like, and I can't realize that image, and it's so painful, I don't think I'm going to do it anymore.
Because he had the ability both to direct actors, to understand the deepest meaning of material, and of course was a terrific choreographer, he had all the abilities needed to take a step forward for the musical. And you see it in West Side Story, Gypsy, and Fiddler on the Roof, and then he was gone.
Robbins would not return to Broadway for 25 years. But he continued to explore ideas about tradition and family in a ballet set to Stravinsky's cantata about a Russian peasant wedding, Les Noces.
Jerry was always interested in community, whether it was the community of a gang, the community of a shtetl, the community of this fictitious Russian society. I think Jerry was very concerned with belonging.
You must have big plans for the future, huh?
Well, someday, Ed, I would like to have a theater company of my own that's devoted not just to dancing, but also to all the arts.
It was the 60s, and all around us, things were changing. There was tremendous experimentation going on. People were looking for new ways of working as a collective. That was one thing. And looking for new ways to present theater.
In 1965, with one of the first grants from the National Endowment for the Arts, Robbins established the American Theater Laboratory to work with material ranging from Greek tragedy to Japanese no drama. But after 2 years, feeling sidetracked, he returned to New York City Ballet because, he said, the master choreographer was working there, and what more honor and pleasure and education could one have? City Ballet would be his artistic home for the rest of his life.
When I look back at my history, that quite often when I haven't been working in ballet itself, that when I come back to it, something good happens.
The something was the seminal Dances at a Gathering, one of Robbins' most lyrical and expressive ballets, in which classic dance steps arise from Chopin's piano music, as naturally as breathing.
He wanted it to look as natural as possible, and actually he just let us be us.
I started Dances at a Gathering. There's a pas de deux. I asked for 2 other dances, and then I asked for 2 more dances, and I thought, well, 6 is going to be the most it gets to. And then I showed it to Balanchine, and he looked at it and he said, more, more. It's got to be like popcorn. Give him more. And then out came Dances at a Gathering.
I remember when he did my solo, he was able to dance it so well and with such energy and wit and tenderness that I thought to myself, I'll never be able to do this thing.
I remember standing in the wings with Mr. B, and he would be watching Dances at a Gathering, you know, and he thought it was a wonderful ballet.
I think Mr. B would have loved to have choreographed Dances at a Gathering. He was a little envious of that, and he thought it was beautiful.
never saw a reaction of an audience. They just went, bravo. And I never heard that at City Ballet.
Staggering.
It was
really-
staggering.
Jerome Robbins was heralded as being the future, and Balanchin was sort of, okay, pack your bag, George. It's time.
Robbins' triumphant return to City Ballet coincided with a rare fallow period for George Balanchine. But Robbins' ambitious and distinctive new ballets provoked not only praise, but criticism. In the Goldberg Variations, he took on Bach's monumental 80-minute keyboard work, a task he compared to trying to scale a beautiful marble wall.
The whole idea of making a ballet to Goldberg Variations, I think, is unbelievably gutsy.
It was glorious in a way. You felt as if every aspect of ballet technique and what it meant to be a classical dancer had been laid out before you. For some people, that was just ponderous, and for others, it was a revelation.
Drawing on his exploration of Japanese no drama in the American Theater Lab, Robbins defied his theatrical instincts by creating an hour-long ballet in which time and motion seem suspended as a man looks back on his life.
Watermill was a very exciting and strange experience. Never forget the audience's first reaction. It was total silence, and then boo from this way, and then bravo from over here.
Jerry aimed high. He wanted everything to be a little gem, and maybe to some people that comes across as pretentiousness.
For City Ballet's dancers accustomed to Balanchine, Robbins was a taskmaster.
Well, you never go up. You do the same correction every rehearsal. For years that we've been doing this.
There was a terrific, sensitive man at work, afraid to allow that sensitivity to impinge in any way on what he saw as his vision of how something should be done.
In the night, I was first cast with Violette. I have never spent so many hours rehearsing such a short little pas de deux, ever. It drove me crazy. I just said to myself, Peter, be patient. You see, I was used to Mr. B. I mean, Balanchine would make a ballet in 2 rehearsals in the practice room. I was like for 2 months in the main hall with Violette and, please.
Every choreographer works different. I get angry at people saying, oh, he's so slow, or he takes so much time, so what? That's the way I work. We all can't beat Balanchine.
Jerry would take what you are, twist and turn, and end up enhancing it so that you were a glorified version of what you are. Balanchine would have you dance in ways that you didn't know you could.
I would say Balanchine was technically more difficult, but you were much more naked in a Robbins ballet, in a sense, to be yourself, to be natural, and yet you still have to go out there and perform in front of 3,000 people.
There was a very delicate balance between including the audience and not selling the dance. It was this balance that Jerry was very interested in.
It's not too fast. Yeah, you don't see it. Jump. One. Yeah.
Jerry liked when you marked a ballet. He didn't like you to dance full out. He said, easy boy, easy baby, easy baby, easy baby, easy, easy baby. Whereas Mr. B said, why are you taking it easy? They were completely opposite. in every way. Jerry's rehearsals were physically easy, but mentally hideous. And Balanchine's rehearsals were mentally delightful and physically nightmarish.
1972 marked a milestone in the history of the New York City Ballet, the Stravinsky Festival, a one-week marathon of 30 ballets, 21 of them premieres, including 2 masterworks by Balanchine.